Well, today is an amazing topic. I hear this quite often when we talk about what is deserving and what kind of things are coming to us. But when the universe itself, when it chooses you, it's an interesting concept. I mean, even if we look at if somebody were to approach you and say to you that, I've been watching you. And I see the way you handle people, and I see the way you are looking at things. That you would be great as a chairman for one of our groups, or you would be great as an ambassador for our town, or a mayor, or you would be great. I mean, imagine if somebody approached you, and if you're in really good top condition, they would ask you to be part of the Olympic team. That would be such an honor that someone else chose you, right? It isn't something that you're pursuing. You've been chosen. They saw something in you. And so, what would you say? How would you react when somebody says that? And the way that you respond when somebody chooses you to do something, and they're great things to do, it's an honor to do. What is the immediate thought you have right after that? Gee, I'm not sure if I can do that. Am I smart enough? Am I strong enough? Maybe I'm too old. Maybe I'm too young. You know, the type of thoughts that come in, all something about being worth a certain thing. And so all that self-doubt, all that inner thoughts is your perception of yourself. You see, when somebody chooses you, and this is pretty much uniform right across the board, a best friend, or when somebody chooses you to do something, they will always see you and perceive you in a higher light than you'll perceive yourself. Always. Very, very few exceptions, unless somebody has been really working on themselves and they know they're a big deal. They know that they have worth, then it's pretty close. But on the most part, on the average, when it comes to overall population and so on, most people will think they are a little lower than other people perceive them to be. So it's really a game of perception. Somebody perceives you in one light and you see yourself in another. And this also works if they're saying something negative about you. If somebody says, I don't know, what are you thinking? What you did was really dumb on stage. I don't know why you brought up that topic. Then you'll go the same way. You'll see yourself less than negative. Oh, I don't think that was a big enough deal. I mean, I understand I brought up a topic, but that was to get the audience going. And I don't think that was in other words, they will always think of you from a negative perspective more than you'll think of yourself. So it works both positive and negative. But it's a battle of perception. And as we talked about last week, in non-physical sense, when you are in a non-physical environment, there is no such thing as perception. Because you need a brain to perceive yourself a certain way. In non-physical, in pure energy, it's you only see the truth. So when you come into this world, you are then blessed with the truth that you come in with, but then all the other perceptions that go with it, because our brains do those kind of things. It's a battle of perceptions in that way. Now, it's one thing when people suggest for you to be a certain thing and you've been chosen to do something, and you can look into it and agree to it or not agree to it. But the point is, they saw something great in you. And when we self-evaluate ourselves, is what does that mean? How come I'm not seeing this? When we ask ourselves those questions of why am I not seeing this? I mean, this is of course sort of a slam dunk. They are very certain that I have this ability, but I don't see myself. And so that's the gap that we're always looking at. So let alone when the universe sees you and chooses you to do something, and every one of us, when we come into physical form, every one of us are here to do something. You've been chosen to do something, and that's in various degrees. We all have several things on our list, and of course everybody will have something like sharing with others, be kind to others. That's sort of a given. That's sort of a something that's a template. That's part of a template. And then you'll add a few things for your energy that will sort of add to it. But when somebody says that you are great, then you say, why me? Why did you choose me to do this? Why? I don't understand. So that is really the quest that we want to sort of dive in a little bit today. Why is it that people feel that way? And no matter how much you talk to them, that you are great, you are this, but it's this internal belief. It isn't about ramming something in, is that what's not coming out? What it's just like pushing on a rope. It just can't be done. You need to do things that will be able to spur on those great things that you have already inside of you. So when the universe says that this is what you'll need to be doing, and then when in physical form, we don't know that like cognitively, but when something comes up and we feel that, hey, this is an important cause, or this is an important project, or this is an important work that I'm doing, or what I'm doing is really great. If you feel that, then chances are that is part of what you've been chosen to do. And I read a quote the other day I thought was really cool. It says, if you choose not to change and not to follow whatever it is, nobody can help you. Nobody. But if you choose that change is something that is important to you, and it is something that is, you perceive that it's part of your blood, nobody can change your mind about that. Nobody will be able to stop you, in other words. And I thought that was really good, because when we look at what perception is all about, animals don't have that. Animals don't have it. Animals itself, they are hardline linked to this earth, and they are linked to the universe. In other words, natural forces of nature. And it doesn't matter what you say or what you do, they will just follow that. There is no second guessing. And even with the smaller brain that many of the animals have compared to ours, because we always compare ourselves that we're more sophisticated. But I happen to believe in many ideas to where our brain has become larger. Not only the circuitry is more, but we have the ability to think more. But then we overthink, and we don't know what that line is. So how do we overthink? And pets do this all the time. Like when they need to do something, they are chosen to come to us, and they choose us. Actually, even a stray dog or a stray cat that comes in to your home, not by accident. There's always a reason why something comes to your doorstep, and it usually comes at the exact time that you need something. And pets are always there to give that comfort, that warmth, and they don't second guess themselves. They are there. So what we need to do, because we've gone through various traumas and various disappointments in life, what we need to do is to find different sources of comfort that are in nature. It's not just about talking to someone. It's about doing this energetically, which goes a lot deeper. Connecting to your pets. I mean, just hugging your pet, because pets itself, they're outside. They don't have shoes. They are constantly grounded, and they are like little batteries. You're just like a lithium battery. They suck up that energy while they're outside. When they come back in, they jump on the couch and you hug them. Well, you're getting all that energy as if you were outside barefoot, even in the middle of winter. So now in Canada, right now, we are experiencing spring, and it's getting into summer really nice. So pretty soon the grass is going to be nice and growing, and we'll be able to do nature walks and so on. So try to be in that level of, if you need to do something here on earth, you see, you got to realize that the universe never chooses you to do something in non-physical, because it's a no-brainer. It's just like, okay, I'm in non-physical, but now what? But they'll usually give you something to do when you have to come to this earth, because it's a lot more challenging, and we have to share more, and it's much more difficult. So there are a couple of steps that you could do along the way that will help in this quest. And Spirit has a couple of suggestions. There's three of them. There's one is a power of grounding. If we have to do something on this earth, you need to ground. Yes, most of us do have the sneakers, the rubber soles, but if you have leather boots, leather soles, those are good. You don't always have to be barefoot, because there are some people that say, well, Tony, I live in a very rocky area and I can't be walking barefoot all the time. And so Spirit says, then in your bare feet, you put your feet in a leather boots or leather soles of some kind, not rubber, synthetic rubber, because that cuts off the circulation. But anything leather is from the land. Everything leather, moccasins, or whatever you want to call it, anything that touches the ground in some way. And then it's better, of course, it's better when you're barefoot, but at least it's better than nothing, right? So, and be able to touch a tree. We have trees in our backyard. We have trees close to our houses, usually in a park or something. And just park yourself under a tree and just put your back to it and have it where it's connected to you. The trees are an amazing thing. We've actually developed a tree meditation that we're going to see today, that we're going to be able to connect energetically, very powerfully, through the ground and the earth, the Om, and many other frequencies that are basically earthbound, and will help you that way. The second thing is to eliminate anxiety. Now, I understand this is a big topic. What is anxiety? In fact, Spirit says it is a culmination of many things. Anxiety is not an emotion, it's a result. If you look at any of the way of anxiety, because I tried to look it up, what emotion is anxiety? And it all depends on the person. If a person feels like they're not enough, if they feel like they're guilty all the time, that they're not doing something right, that there's always one looking over their shoulders, and they feel insecure, those are emotions that result in anxiety. But the combination is different for everybody. We all feel a little bit of anxiety sometimes. So sometimes when we say get rid of anxiety, sounds easy, but it's a combination. And here's the thing. If you are challenged with anxiety of some kind, and your children will be as well. I mean, they're going through their process and their journey, and they will feel anxiety at times. And so what we need to do, first of all, is teach ourselves how to find the answers or the combination of things. I mean, when you look at a combination lock, it's not just one number. What's the combination on your lock? It's 8. Well, you'll never get that because it's so easy to find. So you'll get like 5, 6, maybe 7 numbers to align in a certain way, and that combination opens the lock. And it's different for everyone. So Spirit doesn't want to give you the combination, but more so how to find that combination. And you could do it through meditation and through just your quiet time and asking, I am feeling like anxious. I'm feeling anxiety. What is that from? And with pictures and feelings and various things, there's a lot of topics we can go through, but there are ways that we can find what our combination is. And he said, okay, is it my past? Is it a past life thing? Is it from a childhood thing? Is it something that happened last week? Why? And we start asking, and we're more vigilant. And then Spirit starts to see that you want to find a solution here. And we're gonna give you a little affirmation that's going to blow your mind right at the end of this. The other thing about this is that when you have that anxiety, okay, we're going to talk about how to find it, but while you have it, just so you're aware that it kills the positive electromagnetic energies in your body. It really dummies it down to a point where you have a hard time in healing. You have a hard time in finding creative things to do. The creative process, it doesn't happen. If you're looking for answers for something, it won't come as quickly with anxiety. So we're going to give you some ideas there. Cultivating anything heart-centered emotion, like anything to do with feeling gratitude. Well, here's one technique that you can do. We've all heard about the various breathing techniques that you can do. You take a deep breath in, and most people don't breathe in. Okay, that's Spirit telling me that. Okay, that's I'm on the right track anyway. Um, most people, when they think of breathing, Spirit says most people don't breathe deep enough because that's how Spirit gets in through your breath. Whenever someone has a hard time connecting, and I'll feel that, okay, we're not at a point to breathe in more, to breathe in that heavier breath, then hold it for a second, and then just breathe it out. You do that 3 to 5 times, depending on how you feel. And just like a workout, you have to do intermittent breathing. In other words, you're breathing in and out slowly. And on the fifth one, if you get to the 5, then you breathe fast. And it's all through your nose. I'll give you one demonstration. So you're breathing in through your nose and then breathe out through your nose very quickly. Now, those that have a cold, if you blow your nose ahead of time, that will help. Okay, but essentially it works like this. You breathe in. So you're breathing in with your nose, and then you're breathing out fast with your nose. If you breathe out with your mouth, it doesn't do the same because through your nose, the third eye is also connected through your nasal passages. So you want to breathe in and out through your nose, and then the rest you can breathe in with your mouth, and then or breathe in with your nose and out with your mouth. But it's intermittent. It's just like working out. If you do the same thing all the time, you're only going to get a certain amount of results, and then you're going to hit sort of a plateau. You can't go any farther, right? But this heavy breathing rushes oxygen through your brain, and through your nasal passages, you'll be able to connect much easier to Spirit. Whenever I have a really hard time in connecting to somebody, if they're in a distance, I'll just pause for like 5 seconds and do those fast breathing through my nose. And usually within 2 to 3 seconds, I'm back on. It's just like your Wi-Fi is wavering and it's not really on to, okay, back. Okay, my Wi-Fi is back. So it works. It just takes practice. All right. But it's that energy itself that creates that. In talking about the different emotions and so on, I came upon this poem that Spirit showed me. Now this poem it relates to a son, but also want you to realize it does also it's applicable to daughters and women. So as I was going to change the words a little bit so that it has both, but Spirit told me not to do that because I would be compromising the initial intention of the poem. So I just wanted you to know that it's for both. But the poem goes like this. My son, I closed my eyes for but a moment, and suddenly a man stood where my boy used to be. I am not able to carry you now in my arms, but I will always carry you in my heart. You have given me so many reasons to be proud of the man that you have become. But the proudest moments is to tell other people that you are my son. I love you now and forever. When you start working with energy outside of yourself, that's when things happen that you never expected. When you're always working in with the energy inside and things are going stale, then you just say, okay, I got to do something for someone else, or think of a family member, or think of something that's really important. And that's just one example. You can do that same one. I could send you the poem if you like, if that would be a reminder. But it just goes to show that when you're constantly trying different things, you're trying to incite or you're trying to bring in that high level of energy that has nothing to do with you. Then your powers are limitless because you now have a higher purpose, as they call it. Spirit has also given me examples of people that have been chosen to do something. And I'm not sure if you know of the one story, Nicholas Winston. Not sure if you know that name. But that was about 80 years ago. It was at the Second World War, 1940, 1941. And he single-handedly rescued 669 Jewish children from going to the death camp in Auschwitz. Their parents were about to leave, and they knew they weren't coming back. And so they had to give the kids to somebody, knowing that they would perish along with them. So it took a while before Winston realized, or Nicholas realized that like, I'm only one person. Like if I get caught doing this, I'm going to be shot right away. So there was a lot of things. So he was back and forth, but he still had this push to try to save these children. So he says, I don't even know where to send them. And Spirit gave him various contacts to come up with, and there was several British families that would take these kids on. And he had no idea how many he would be able to save along the way. But as time went, he took their picture, he had their addresses, and he knew where they were going. And it came to 669, and when he was all done in that way, and they would have been perished, as I said. So I think about 50 or 60 years go by, and his wife, because he never told his wife what he did. It was just something that you just didn't want to say in case there was any retribution or any penalties or anything. So he just kept it quiet. And his wife was going through some paperwork in an attic and found that all the documents that these children had their picture, the addresses, where they were, the names, everything was all there. And so she took it to a journalist and said, there's something here. And so he took upon it himself to contact every single child that was affected. He went through, and of course they had moved in that time, but he found several of them. He found hundreds of them. They all convened at an auditorium, and he didn't, Nicholas didn't know what was happening. And they just basically said, is there someone in the room that owes their life to Nicholas? And one person stood up, and he said that, yeah, you saved me from the tyranny, and I was with my new family in Britain. And he says, oh, it's so good to meet you. And then anyway, they had this great meeting, and he says, is there anybody else? And the entire auditorium, they stood up. And he couldn't believe that when you look at your work over the period of years, all in one place, it is daunting how amazing you are. And that's what caught him, is that it was only one child at a time, no big deal. But as you did it again and again and again, and we do this every day, we do amazing things every day, but we don't look at how the significance is each day until somebody culminates it all and shows it to you all in one place. And it's a great reminder that when we are chosen to do something, why do we resist? There's always this hesitation, because I mean, it is understandable. We have gone through so much trauma, so much torment as children. Many of us have been abused verbally, maybe physically, and other things. We've been, in school, we've been bullied. There's constant trauma throughout our lifetime, disappointments, there's hurt. And in doing all of that, we put up walls, we put up armor, because if we didn't, we would have gone crazy, because we're like an open sponge. And it's just so overwhelming, we would have just said, okay, we would have checked out right now. But just for our safety, we put up these mental walls, these energetic walls. And even though the trauma is happening, it doesn't go as deep, because it's armor. It's what it is. And essentially, there is such a thing as energetic armor. And when we do this, it is for our protection. It is for our existence. What happens is, after a while, when the stimulus either moves on and we now have our own lives, the armor is still there, and it starts to become a liability after a while. And what we regard as a midlife crisis, it isn't a crisis, and I'll explain why. What happens is, about halfway through our life, there'll be a point where Spirit says, okay, enough is enough. We've been watching this happen. The trauma itself induced is over, and now the armor is holding in, like a container, just like a plastic bottle, is holding in all this trauma, and we're just trying to wash the floor with dirty water in the sense. If we were to wash a floor, we don't use dirty water, but that's essentially what we're doing when we're looking at trauma, trying to find peace. And there is no clean water in this. So spirit comes down approximately halfway through our life, our midlife, and it says, okay, that's it. That's it. You can't do this anymore because we're not messing around. Like, they make it very serious. They make it that you're almost dead in a sense. You're halfway dead, in other words, because you're keeping everything in. All of the gifts that we've given you is being hampered because you're holding all this in. They know it's not your fault. But there's a way that they just want to wake you up. And this is where we go through this time in our life where we start to get more intuitive, and we want things that mean something to us. Up until then, you just worked and, trotted along in your 20s and 30s and so on. But when we hit the 40s and 50s, 55, that area, and you still haven't sort of caught the glimpse of how it's going, then there is an awakening of some kind. Some people will call it a rude awakening, but either way, it's an awakening. But they want you to realize that there is going to be a penalty after this by not using your gifts. Like, if somebody gave you $1 million saying, here you go, improve your life, and you just put it in the bank and you let it sit there and you forget about it, then the person that gave that to you, well, you haven't changed your life at all. I was hoping you were going to, buy something happy for your family or get another house or something. Like, how would the person feel if they gave this to you? It's a gift. And you just say, nah, that's okay. I don't need it. It's sort of, and that's sort of sometimes what the universe feels, is that they're giving you these amazing gifts. And because of whatever has gone in your life, you're holding everything in and not releasing it. So they're saying that you don't get points due to ignorance. Yeah, I didn't know I was supposed to let this out. But there's so many signs that you need to let this go. So many people are telling you, wow, you're always tired. I mean, you're 48 years old. And like, they had this one lady, she's 48 years old. And up until then, she was very active and she was getting into so many things, and just had all of a sudden, over the period of 6 months, had no energy and just her body's falling apart. And now high blood pressure's coming in, and she's not an overweight person. And so she's looking at things. Well, what is going on physically? Has gone through tests and have gone through blood tests and all the tests that you can do. Everything seems normal, but it just seems like her body's falling apart. So when we look at things like that, he says, okay, the time is up. I need to get away. And what it came down to is releasing this armor. A battle that was fought 80 years ago, it doesn't mean you got to carry around a machine gun or be in a tank. It's a different lifestyle. So you got to get rid of the armor because it's heavy. It's not appropriate anymore. It's holding things in. And so by going through this, really what they call it is a slow, brutal unraveling. And then this was reminded by this other guest speaker that I saw a little while ago. And it's an unraveling, and it's not a midlife crisis. It's a part where you're unraveling all the things, all the barbed wire that's in there. You're taking it all off and replacing it with silk or something better, because it's not needed to have all these daggers and spears and the shields. And when people talk about, I feel there's energy around me, I need to have a shield around me. And I said, oh, that's an old thing. We did that in the 70s and 80s, the shields. Now you just surround yourself with light. You can be flowing, and anything that doesn't like the light will just repel itself. We don't need to have armor. We don't need to have those things. But this is where we become better professionals. We become better healers, better parents, better partners, by just getting rid of the weight. And you know what I'm talking about when I talk about weight. I'm not talking about physical weight, because those that are working on weight reduction physically, the first thing they'll do is, what's your lifestyle like? Like, are you guys getting along? And they're talking a lot about emotion. And that's where the weight starts. If you feel heavy energetically, your body will replicate that. And that's about 80% efficient to how you gain and lose weight. When they don't do that, what ends up happening is a person starts to work out, and then there's crying, there's tears everywhere because it's just so hard. It's crying. Those tears, Spirit says, is a form of getting rid of the armor that I can't do something. I won't do something. I'm not good enough to be slimmer. And those what those tears represent. Okay. And some of the things we have even in our vocabulary, we have to be careful of. There's a few of them that just to highlight some of them that I've heard is I have to do something, or I get to do something. So the have to is you could say, I have to take the kids to school. I have to work out. I have to pick up my wife after work. But if you say, I get to drop off my kids, I get to work out, it sounds a bit different, doesn't it? It almost sounds like it's gratitude. I get to do this. I get to pick up my kids. But if we look at it as a grudging task, it's I have to. So that's one way that Spirit says when we limit ourselves from vocabulary, that's the first sign that somebody has some kind of armor that is there, that they have to do everything. Everybody's been telling me what to do. They're forcing me to do things. So I have to go to work, and I have to make a certain pay, and I have to keep the family going. No, you don't. It should be something like, I get to stay with the kids. I get to go to work. Some people don't have jobs, but I get to go. I get to be with my kids. I get to be with some of these amazing people. And when we look at it that way, we look at things differently. Anyway, another one is I should. This is an obvious one. I should, or I could. I should do this. It sounds like it's almost like you have an obligation. I should work out. I really should pick up some more medication for myself. I'm not going to worry about it. I should do that, but I won't. Or you could say, I could do that. That's an option. So it turns an obligation into almost an option. I could be president. I could be a chairman of the board. I could be on the Olympic team. I could, it could, stranger things have happened. Another is yes, but, or yes, and. Somebody could say, I got a great idea. Let's have a barbecue next weekend. Yes, but what if it rains? Or you could say, yes, and we could put up a tent. So that way, if it rains, it's no big deal. It sounds more like collaboration rather than competition. When you're competing with someone else, it means you're competing with yourself. You don't believe that you measure up. So it comes out in your words, okay? Another one is, this is happening to me. I get a letter, let's say, from a jury. They want me to be a juror in the next case. This always happens to me. Have you heard that? So that's like challenging, rather than saying, this is happening for me. This is happening for me. Gee, I wonder what that's about. Maybe I'm supposed to meet somebody there. Maybe one of the juries is going through something that I can help with. Maybe, it's happening for me. In other words, it gives you that higher level of respect that the universe is trying to give you something, and you're saying, yeah, this is what I get to do. It's something for me. Another one is I'm nervous or I'm excited. You see the difference there? It's from an untrained eye, it almost looks the same. If you're about to go on stage, we have a couple of guest speakers here. Carl is one of them. He's a professional speaking coach. And when somebody gets this nervousness before they go on stage, or before they, let's say, start a podcast, or they start a radio program, they go on, and just before they go on, they feel that nervousness. Now, or you could say, I'm excited. Nervousness is connected to anxiety. Excitement is connected to bewilderment, or I'm so excited. And it feels very, very close. Okay, it's still in your stomach and all of that. Another one is I can't do it. We hear that. What do you think if you want to be on the Olympic team? Well, I can't do that. Or I can't do that yet. Do you see the out that you have there? And we're going to be coordinating an affirmation here, I think, that will really help you. In the biggest accomplishment you'll ever do in this life, the biggest one is not so much all the awards and the trophies that you're going to be accumulating and all the achievements that you're going to have, that's outwardly, but the biggest achievements that you will have when you leave this earth is your ability to work with energy and be able to manipulate, channel, and maneuver energy. Sadness is an energy. You know, I love the Irish in this way because I've heard them talk on many shows, and I've been looking at some of the research on the way they talk regarding emotion. And I think they're awesome in the sense that they say sadness is upon me. They don't say I'm sad. I don't think I've ever seen one Irish person say that I'm sad. They'll say sadness is upon me, depression is upon me. It's almost like it's a coat. It's upon me. It's not me. In other words, they're not compromising their identity by saying, I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm depressed, I'm hopeless. Hopelessness is upon me. Well, meaning it could come off. And it has that suggestion. So when we say that, when we're looking for a solution, like let's say you had this amazing idea for something and you need a solution. For instance, this happened the other day where I agreed to be on a show for in the future, and on the same day, not knowing, I didn't check my calendar, I have another function that I have to do on that day that I promised everybody I'd be there. So I'm going to be there, but I have now a conundrum where I have to be in two places at the same time. And I said, okay, how am I going to do this? So I look back as to what I used to do with this. And my affirmation to this is, I know there's a solution. And you can write this one down. There is a solution. I just don't know what the solution is yet. There is a solution, but I just don't know what it is yet. And when you leave it alone, in other words, by keeping your mind on it, okay, what do I do? What do I do? You're trying to find the answer in your head, in this limited brain of ours, which is only a very small dot in the universe. We're trying to figure something out that could be much bigger. And I can't tell you the amount of times that it's happened to me where there's been cases where I've had to be in two places at the same time. I had to work and I had to be at a family reunion. And it says, oh, now what? Okay, there is a solution. I just don't know what it is right now. And I just forget about it. So I start making spaghetti and I start going for a walk and I start doing other things. I'll mow the lawn, I'll bake a cake, whatever it is for you. And I kid you not, within 2 to 3 days, I don't even think it takes 3 days, but within 2 to 3 days, I'll get a call from the training that I'm supposed to be at that, oh, the machine didn't come in right away, so we have to change the date. I hope it's okay, Tony, that we change it for a week later. And then all of a sudden, I could be at the family gathering and at the training at the same time. In other words, now, whether or not I did that, it doesn't matter. The point is, there was a solution, and I just didn't know at the time what it was. But if we just say there's no solution, I can't do it. It'll take 10 years to figure this out. How am I going to do it? And people just constantly not dipping into this universal energy to try and figure it out. But you don't figure things like that out because almost all of it is now beyond your control. You can't tell 16 people at a family gathering, oh, I can't be there after you say you're going to be there. So, okay, that won't happen. So, but this training, I really want to be at this training thing because it's only do it once a year and I kind of want to be there. So now what do I do? Okay, there's a solution to this. I just don't know what it is right now. So whenever you say that, use this as a benchmark just to say, just let it go and do something else. Forget about it. All right. Within 2 to 3 days, something will change and something will just come to you. And it's even been at a point where, oh, Uncle Bob couldn't make it to the family reunion. We really want him there. So because of that, he's coming from Germany and stuff, we're going to be changing the date to a week before. Is that okay with you, Tony? Absolutely. Again, one of them will change, or a solution about it will present itself. Okay. And that's when you're really dipping into these universal energies. And when you're chosen to do something and you wield the energy like that. So if you're angry, realize that anger, frustration, irritability, hopelessness, depression, these are all emotions, they're energy. And so what do you do with it? Some people just let it sit there, and there's always anger, they're always angry. Other people have this beautiful knack of channeling and maneuvering that energy to another place that needs it. The best example I can give you just before we head into the meditation is when you envision yourself with a garden hose. The garden hose is always on, always water coming out. And you only have two choices. You can either water the garden or fill your basement. One is destructive and one is constructive. And when we move that energy from some place where we don't want it, if you put 2 cups or 3 cups of water in your basement in the wrong place, and then don't put any more, mold will grow and it will start something that it just keeps going. Where the garden, and let's say you have an acre of garden, man, you could put that hose there all day, all night, and it still will be very grateful that it has water. So when we look at anger, how do we turn anger into something positive? And this is going to mean something different for each person. One example I can give you really quickly is if somebody says, okay, Tony, let's say, and this was told to me many years ago, Tony, you will never amount to anything. And if I use that energy, now it's upon me. It's like, really? That's how you see me? I'll show you. I'll show you. I'll be even more successful than you can possibly imagine. You see how you've changed it? That's only one example, but there are hundreds of those kinds of things that happen every day that we could channel, maneuver, and manipulate energy so it's now constructive and we're not destructive. If you just let it sit on you, I mean, even if you take a wet blanket and you put it on you and you just have it with you all the time, you could get a cold, and that would be very inappropriate. However, it's the first thing I would do if I'm in a burning building. I want a wet blanket on me, right? So there are applications where I need that, and it's the fire that keeps everything going, that I can use that wet blanket, so to speak, to my advantage. And so your question is, how do I turn this situation into something positive? And you know the affirmation for that now. I know there's a solution. I just don't know what it is yet. When you talk like that, your mind opens up and it's in constant scan mode looking for the solution. Then you got to forget about it. Okay? So in this meditation, what we're going to do is we're going to play the tree. I finally got the video done, which is great. I just posted it last night, already has 100 views on it. I don't know where that came from. I guess people are liking it. And it's about trees, and it's about connection to the earth. If you're chosen to do something on this earth, touching a tree, working with trees are one of the best things because they are intelligent. They really know. With the one story I mentioned last week, for those that weren't here last week, really quickly, I had to do a presentation when I was a kid, an assignment, and I had to talk to an elderly person in my neighborhood about a story that they had when they were kids. And so I found this old man, and we sat down and he started talking about his farm and the grandkids that came over. And one evening there was a storm and blew down one of the biggest trees that he has, and roots and all, and it came right up. The whole tree fell down on the ground, and roots and all. So there was a huge crater where the tree used to be, massive crater. And so he went there and he says, oh, wow, that's going to be fun cutting it up and everything else, because it was a 100-foot tall tree, and like it's not a small job. And his grandkids came the next day and they were playing on this tree. They were jumping up and down and they were in the crater playing fort and all the other things. And they had a great time. After they left the next day, this gentleman decided he's going to cut down the tree. So he took an axe and he was just about to hit it. When he hit the tree, and not very hard, mind you, he said, I just hit the tree and somehow the tree came up, and because of the weight of the roots, it went back into the hole that it was in. So it stood straight up again, in other words. And he started crying because his grandkids were playing in that hole just the day before and they would have been killed. And it's like, that's incredible. Like how do you get that wrapped around your head? And it wasn't until the meditation we did last week that when I connected to the tree, it said it knew that the kids were in the crater, and it also knew the old man, and it held itself. I can't even describe what that means. How does a tree hold itself? But anyway, that's what I was getting. It held itself, and the kids were jumping on it, hitting it, punching it. And there's 3 kids. I mean, you can only imagine the weight. And when he hit it with the axe, the tree let itself go. So it was perfectly balanced, and it would have gone up either way, but it held itself. So trees have an intelligence. So when we connect to that, ask it some questions about you. I have some anxiety. What's that about? I have some questions, and just connect to this tree, okay? I want you to get comfortable. I want you to come up with a couple of questions. You could even say, what do I need to know at this time? It's just something general. You might have a specific question about what happened over the last couple of days, that maybe it's been tough for you, but either event, you're finding another way to find answers, and trees are another way. So let's do this, and it's about 13 minutes long, so it's a nice short one. And I want you to take a nice deep breath in, big deep breath in, so you connect. I want you to envision the color red. When you exhale the color red, and inhale red. That fire engine, beautiful, I call it a Corvette red. That's what I see. That you breathe in this color red and exhale and connect to the tree. Ask it how it's doing, after what kids it has, just small talk, and then ask it questions. Let's see where it goes, okay? All right, we'll come back in a few minutes and get comfortable, and we'll talk to you in a bit. Slowly come out of the state that you're in. But just before you do, try and remember what you saw, what you felt. Did the tree ask you to do something? Any instructions? Bring some of that energy back with you. Take a nice deep breath. How was that for people? How'd you like that? What did you get? Those of you that were watching the video, I know some of you had your eyes closed, but at one point there was a person doing yoga on the stump. I'm not sure if anybody saw that. Okay, but just so you, if you watch it again, you'll see at one point near the end where this lady's actually sitting on a stump. It's cut away, and she's sitting on the stump doing yoga. That is probably the strongest part of it, because where that tree used to be, the roots are going in the ground. Nothing has changed. It's just the top has been cut off, right? And you're sitting on it, and it's the surge of energy that you could get from that is amazing. However, you also got to realize that trees is like a tribe. You got to be invited into the tribe. You just can't go willy-nilly sitting on it because you won't get anything. It'll just cut itself off. No, no, no. But if you go in front of it and you say, I'd like to be temporarily part of your tribe. I'd like to sit where this tree used to be. It gave sustenance, and it gave shade, and it gave nutrition to all the plants in the area. For whatever reason, it's not here, and I'm asking if it's okay. So you're asking permission if you could, because it is like a throne. It is like a royalty thing. And more often than not, they will let you, but you'll feel that permission to say that it's okay. The one time I did this years ago, and I'm going back 15 years ago at least, I did ask, and a chipmunk had come down the tree and crossed just at that point, had crossed the stump, went up to another tree. And so I says, okay, is that a yes? I had to see. And it was. So it just gives you that respect, where when you are respecting nature like that, when you sit on there, then those pores, if I can call them energetic pores, open up, so your experience on it will be much stronger. Otherwise, it's just a stump, right? It's just a stump, and they won't feel anything because it'll close off. Somebody once said, I read it in a quote recently, that people are not scared or fearful of new relationships. They're more fearful of old pain, right? So something that's really in there, you're afraid of more of that. You're not afraid of new relationships. You don't want it to be like another relationship that didn't work out so well. That was the one, was at the very end, where you say, I know there's an answer or there's a solution. I just don't know what it is yet.
Okay.
All right. When you say that, it's like, okay, it's okay not knowing, but it's coming. And it sets your mind up, because your brain has to realize there's an out. When your brain doesn't realize there's an out, it just goes through panic, and then it goes to fear, and then nothing you do will be on the right track when you hit that. But when you look at possibility, hey, it could happen. But the funniest example I could give you was this one skit where the guy was after this really attractive lady. And anyway, she turned him down. And after about 10 times, she says, I just want to make it very clear to you, okay, just so you know, that even if you're the last man on earth, it is only then that I would go out with you. But you have to be the last one. And so he thinks for a second. And he says, so there's a possibility. There's hope. I hope
Thank
this
you,
was
Tony.
I hope that this was a good exercise for you to find yet another way that you could find your way through this, because you're going to find several different methods and ways that you need to find things. If one doesn't work, then you're armed with something else, and it's just spirit is keep feeding. And there's hundreds of these kinds of things that could connect you, find your answers, and keep going. remember, don't get too hooked on the answer. I want you to get addicted to finding whatever combination that you'll be able to do to open your lock. You're always finding and searching for that method of finding the answers. The answers are just what will happen, but it's finding out what works for you in that combination of things. Well, I'll go to the trees, and then I'll go and all the things that we did. I can't think of it right now because my mind's focused on this particular class, but all the ones that you've heard, just try the different ones, and one of them will work for you. Either you're a water person, if you're a tree person, or a land person, this will just connect you like no other. A lot of people are water people, so you do the same thing with lotus flower or flowers in the water. Put your feet in the water type of thing. And if you're a space person, you might want to be on top of sort of a large hill with a vastness in front of you, and you're with the wind and all of that. But it also, you just know what you sort of are attracted to and what resonates with you. And if it's water, then you work with water. If it's land and trees, you work with trees. And many people are animal driven as well. So your pets have that. So turn to your pets, give them a hug, and communicate with them at a different level. Don't talk. The talking is such a sloppy language. Yeah, in your mind, exactly, Laurel. It's all in the mind. They could read that. Horses can read your mind, and they are one of the ones that are the most acute. And from there, there's other animals that can do it, but not at the level that horses can do it. They know what you're thinking. They know that if you're aggressive, they're not going to put up with any of your stuff, but they feel different. You might feel that your hands and your feet are starting to vibrate. So something is happening. We might not know exactly what it is, but just know that something is happening because there's 7 layers of sound. There's about 3 of them that are inaudible, that you can't hear it, but it's in the tone. And we just feel that I don't know what it is about this sound. And or the music. The music is just our way of just getting entertained. So it's what's underneath is the real power, and that's goes the same with us. What's underneath has more power than what you're going to hear. All right. Have a good weekend, everybody. Love you all. Okay.
Thank you, Tony.
Bye, Tony.
So bye now. Bye.
Yeah.